baby, sitting on his knees as he beamed into the camera. That wasn't the lemonade day. She was too young in the photo to drink lemonade, and Stefan was not yet born. And on the lemonade day, the whole family had been there, her mother and father and Stefan. She was sure of it. She remembered sitting with Stefan on the brown couch in the living room of their first apartment, her mother crying in the armchair while two large policemen yelled. They wore dark uniforms that made creaking noises when they moved. Katya couldn't remember the words, just shouting and rumbling growls from the men and the sobbing from her mother. After that, her father's absence had become just another fact, like a crack in a window that had always been cracked, that had always let in the cold. She probed the memory the way you probe a cracked tooth with your tongue. The policemen's voices had been accusatory, delivering bad news as though whatever had happened was Katya's mother's fault. Her mother accepted everything, not arguing with the policemen, nodding her head as she cried. After that, they had lived with her grandmother, an angry, dried-out husk of a woman who spread misery thick enough to eat, and in all those years there wasn't a single good memory. Her mother's death was another blur. From one day to the next, her mother had simply disappeared. Now Katya realized there must have been an illness, and it must have lasted weeks or even months. But she remembered no hospital visits, nothing, just a void where their mother had been. One morning, sometime after their mother disappeared, their grandmother dressed Katya and Stefan in formal clothes and led them across Poltava to the crematorium. They were sitting in a huge room, just the three of them. At the front of the room, a cheap wooden casket was mounted on what looked like a ladder lying flat. Her grandmother pointed at the casket. "That's your mother. She had bad blood." Then the sound of machinery, and the casket was drawn along the steel rails towards the curtains. The curtains opened to receive the casket and then closed. That was the last Katya had seen of her mother. Chapter 2. There's something special about walking down the street with a woman who looks like she's 3 leagues out of your own. She gets the looks from passers-by, then they look at you, and you've just scored a point. For Roger Belair, this was one of those walks. A warm June evening when everything seems right with the world. The woman walking beside him was good-looking by any standards. Belair wasn't going to be having supper alone for the first night in weeks, and he was beaming. It wasn't a date. She was a client who'd turned up late for a meeting. Belair was hungry, so he suggested a working supper. She accepted, probably felt sorry for keeping him waiting. The sun had just set, but it wasn't yet dark. Belair could see the light from the large bay windows of the restaurant illuminating the street, beckoning to them. When they reached the doorway, he stopped on the narrow sidewalk and gestured like a hotel doorman. If he hadn't been so distracted, he might have seen the huge SUV speeding towards them, its wheels half up on the narrow sidewalk. He noticed nothing until the driver's door opened directly into him and sent him flying forward to the ground. He lay on the pavement for a few seconds before rolling slowly onto his back, struggling to sit up. The woman was being manhandled into the back of the vehicle by 2 men. Only when the door slammed shut did he register her screaming. She had been screaming the whole time, but now it was quiet. Belair struggled to get up, but only managed to make it to his knees. The SUV was already speeding away on St. Paul. The license plate was covered by a rag or paper, he wasn't sure. Turning to see whether anyone else had been watching, he felt the searing pain from his arm. It was bent back at an unnatural angle, and blood was seeping from his sleeve. Immediately, people converged on him. "Call the police! Somebody call the police!" he shouted to no one in particular. Several people raised cell phones to their ears. The owner of Les Pyrénées stepped out of the doorway. "Maître Belair," he said. He took Belair's good arm and placed it over his own shoulder to help him off his knees. "Come inside. The police will be here soon. And an ambulance. We called an ambulance." "These people," Belair said, gesturing to the crowd. "They saw it. They're witnesses. We need to get their names." The owner turned slowly, with Belair's arm still draped over his shoulder, and said in a loud voice, "Please wait for the police to get here. It's important. And I will serve a cone of pistachio sorbet for everyone who waits."
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.